Hello, world. My next guest is a global B2B social media and employee advocacy leader. He started his professional career as a copy editor, learning how to perfect a message so it reaches its intended audience. Now, 20 plus years later, you could say his job is still basically the same, albeit in formats that were unimaginable back then. Keeping him challenged in our industry is how we can, as marketers, continue to connect to the right audience with the right message at the right time to achieve our objective. And ready to reveal right on our show everything he knows about employee advocacy, please welcome the none other than Joe Morris, Head of Social Media and Employee Advocacy at Capgemini, a global leader in partnering with companies to transform and manage their business by harnessing the power of technology. Joe, welcome to the show. Are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
Yes, I think I am. Yes, we shall see.
We shall see. So listen, anyone who goes and Googles your name, looks you up on LinkedIn, it's so clear that you are, I'll call you the king of employee advocacy. But I have to ask you, these days, this climate, 2023, what's keeping you up at night professionally?
Employee advocacy. um, yes, it's not easy. It's very difficult to do it well. And so, what really keeps me up at night is how, well, there are lots of things actually, but really, ultimately, it comes down to how do you get people to do it. You can lead the horses to water, you can't make them drink. So we can put lots of effort into building a nice reservoir for them, filled with nice, clean, cool water. Build a little path for them down there, help them get to the edge, but then we're not going to shove their faces into the water because they'll drown. So that's the really tricky part. Really is because the thing about social media is that it's not something you can just switch on and switch off again. It's really it has to become an instinct, a habit. You have to really get it. You have to like LinkedIn, and understand the value that it can bring you by being active on LinkedIn on a regular basis. LinkedIn really rewards frequency, regularity, and that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. And sharing content, writing your own content, putting yourself out there. That's a tough thing to do for some people. I mean, if you look at my own profile, I don't post that much content. I really should, but it just doesn't come naturally to some people. But then there are other people who don't understand why they should and don't get it.
Yeah.
So really, that's the central issue, I think, is you can. The rest of it is all sort of logistics. But that's the main thing, is how do you motivate people to use LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, to advocate for themselves and for your business too.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it's definitely not easy. And as someone who also leads their own advocacy program here, right? Everything you're saying is striking a chord with me. So I have to ask, and I think many of us leading programs will probably have a similar question, but how are you getting your colleagues to want, right, to be part of such initiative?
Yeah. I don't know if I have an answer for that, really. I mean, one thing is good content. You have to give them content that actually is going to make them look good, right? And is going to add value to them, to their network, and is going to help them to connect with audiences and to have proper conversations with them. So that's a key thing. Make sure they don't feel like you're just using them as a channel. That you're going to pile a bunch of corporate messaging on their plates and expect them to offer it up to everybody, regardless of the topic, or the relevance, or their own feelings. I think that's very important. Um, and like I said before, the value, making people understand, that look, this is actually good for you. It's good for your career. Um, it will raise your profile. Help you grow your influence, impress your friends, whatever it is that you value, and that you get value. You get value from. This will help you to be able to do that if you do it in the right way. I think that's really the main crux of it. Of course, there are other levers, like having some top-down pressure that always helps, right? To say, people talk a lot about digital leadership these days, and certainly that's gaining a lot of momentum, at Capgemini. Our CEO is regularly recognized as a really strong influencer, on LinkedIn, a top influencer. I mean, he was just there was an article just the other day about his involvement in Davos, for instance. His and so other people see that within the business and say, yeah, I want that. That looks great. That really helps. So having that, ambassador, for how to do it well, is really helpful as well. But of course, yes, in terms of your sort of business leadership and saying, okay, we really need you, to do this, because it'll really help you. Obviously, you could introduce incentives or add it to people's KPIs and so on and so forth. We're not doing that at the moment, but yeah, I think focusing more on the softer arguments for why this works. That seems to be the trick.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And, you mentioned, right, having that top-down support, and then you even mentioned a little bit earlier, right, that it's about creating a habit or forming habits, right? It's not just like,
Yeah.
right, like come to social media and start posting, but you have to, as an advocate, if you will, find your rhythm, or right, what excites you to be sharing in the first
Mm-hmm.
place. So how are you as a program leader maintaining that excitement quarter after quarter, right? It kind of goes along with, right, keeping your colleagues engaged and wanting to be part of it, but
Yes.
right, it's dynamic. So it's like, what are you doing to keep them coming back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the other one of the other tricky things about advocacy and building up a professional brand, personal professional brand, is that it takes time.
Yeah.
There's no quick button you can flick just to and suddenly you're an influencer. So you have to be in it for the long haul. I think that's one kind of key message, is that this isn't going to happen overnight, but it will be worth it. I mean, but how do you keep people excited over that time? Well, again, there is no easy way to do that. Yes, you can do it, but in the negative way, by applying pressure instead and saying, well, whether you're excited or not, you have to do it. Sorry. But obviously that's you're not going to get very good results that way. So I think it's a lot of it's to do with, again, content,
Yeah.
right? Focusing on the messages, but also maybe it's opportunities, to work with external influencers, for instance, to be able to develop a relationship with them, to develop content with them, so that you become, ultimately the goal is to become part of their peer group. I think that's and that's something you're not going to be doing every week with somebody, but it's going to be, you have those sort of pivotal moments throughout the year, and yeah, offering those opportunities and say, well, but you have to put a bit of work in first, um, to get that, but that is part of your reward.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I've heard employee advocacy be coined as almost the new professionalism, or social media is the new gold standard of professionalism, across many industries, because again, it's not something where you log in and you share once and suddenly you're an
Mhm.
influencer or a thought leader. And as you said, it does take time to grow. And I think especially right in today's day and age, we all love that instant gratification. If we share one post and get 100 likes and comments, we feel
Yeah,
really good about ourselves. But if we're sharing, 50 posts a month and we're not getting any engagement,
yeah,
right, it can be
yeah.
discouraging. Like, what's the point of this? So
Yeah, it's a balance.
it's a balancing act. And I think, right, it's important to continually tell your advocates exactly what you said, right? It's something where you're building this relationship over time, you're helping, educate your network, you're going to be popping up in people's feeds, and there's value to that. So with all of that said, how are you measuring the success of your employee advocacy program? And how do you know quarter over quarter, year over year, if what you're
Mhm.
doing is actually successful or having the impact you want it to have?
Yeah, that's something that we put quite a lot of time and effort into. I mean, I think first of all, it starts by being clear on your objective. Um, you know, if you're going to measure performance, measure value, then you have to first of all define what is the value, what is it that you're looking to get out of this, and then our objective, just the first kind of superficial objective is to create influencers, micro influencers, more likely. Um, and so we've actually spent a lot of time developing what we call the maturity grid. um,
Mhm.
and basically it comes down to a scatter chart that plots. The idea is it's plotting your journey. You're going through different levels of influence. So you start off as a contender, a beginner basically, and so you've got X number of followers, but then also we put a lot of effort into tracking actually people's activity levels. So not just followers, but also number of posts, engagement rates, but also their activity as well. Are they commenting on other people's content? Are they liking other people's content, and so on? And so we put all of those numbers into a blender, and it gives us an activity score. Um, so we are able to then plot. So where are they? Are they going up towards the top right quadrant? That's the goal. And we found that. And we don't do this for every employee, of course. We have 350,000, so not really practical. But we focus on a hard core of subject matter experts
Oh,
for this part of the program, and the program as a whole is about every employee. But for this part of the program, so then we are able to see, and for those advocates, they are able to see progress, hopefully.
yeah.
And it's about, it doesn't mean that once you get to the top right corner you are an influencer, but it's about really charting, are you exhibiting influencer behavior?
Mhm.
And so I think that has become quite a good incentive for our advocates to be able to see, okay, have I reached the next level yet?
Mhm.
We have four
Mhm.
levels. Um, and it becomes a tool for us to be able to see, well, you're going up in on one axis but not on the other, and
Mhm.
let's have a look at see why you're growing, seem to be growing your following, but your engagement rate is still low. Well, let's have a look and see, do a deep dive and see why that is. Are you just simply sharing too many posts? That kind of thing. So that's one way we track performance. The other is, obviously we want them to drive traffic to websites. So of course, all the UTM, we had UTMs and all of that kind of stuff, so that we can track the contribution of advocacy as a whole, and even down to, like, with our senior leadership, the individual. So I can see how many sessions has our CEO delivered to the website, for instance. But then it becomes down to more on a topic level. It's about sort of share of voice. How are we? Is advocacy actually contributing to that share of voice, that objective, whatever it is for that sector or whatever? and within that campaign that was run, what was the contribution? And because the idea is for us is that we are trying to create influences that we can then use
Yeah.
within campaigns, so that very much believe that the future for B2B social media is really all about the employee. It's not about the corporate channel. We all know that LinkedIn doesn't really like company page content. The algorithm suppresses it, so you get a lot more bang for your buck from an employee's channel, and also because people want to hear from people, and businesses like ours, we're not really selling widgets, we're selling skills, we're selling people, we're selling culture. So that's why we need to put people at the front and center. So so then they play a strong role in campaigns, so therefore we were able to see, okay, whatever the objective was for that specific campaign, did they contribute to that? And did they surpass the benchmark for corporate, for instance, organic? So really that's it. I mean, it is, if you say, okay, what's the value of our advocacy program as a whole? A lot of it's kind of soft, what's the word? Not metrics, but soft values that we're looking at in terms of visibility. Ultimately, really, it's about relationships. That's what social is about. And historically, for companies, social media has been about broadcasting content out to audiences. But now with employee advocacy, it's really about one-to-one relationships. And so, with when you look at like account teams, for instance, then we'll start mapping their networks. So what kind of relationships do they have? Do they have the right relationships with the right people, at this specific account? So, we can sort of create a benchmark. Okay, this is the kind these people are not connected. They're not following each other. They haven't interacted at all. And then, 6 months later, has that changed? Has that picture changed? And so there, it's for me, that's the kind of the really exciting stuff. Because yes, like the maturity grid and stuff, that's great. It's a useful tool, but it is all about numbers. What it's not showing you is quality. And we know that you could have 100 reactions, but if they're all 90 of them are from your employees, then that's not going to achieve your objective, as useful as it may be. And often you just need the one right person to see that piece of content, right? So that's the tricky part is, you've got 350,000 people. You can't do that for every single person, and to be able to, and of course, LinkedIn is not our friend in terms of visibility to the API and all that stuff. But yeah, how do you identify? Do you have to go through, if you get 1,000 reactions or 150 comments or something, do you have to go through and look at each one, look at the profile and say, oh yeah, that person, that was valuable, for sure. There's no easy way to do that. So that's something that we're kind of trying to tackle at the moment. Is really, ultimately, it's about, are you extending the relationship? Is it obviously ultimately what you want to do is it contributing to pipeline? But that's that's a holy grail. But yeah, so that was a bit of a kind of long-winded answer, but it's not simple. Again, there's nothing with advocacy is simple.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not. And I can definitely say, so here at Oktopost, we actually take our advocates and what we do, because we, instead of having to go through like every single comment or every single engagement, that we actually just pump that right into marketing automation, and it assigns it to, like, if their leads are in our system. So we actually can see that buyer journey and how advocacy is impacting. So that definitely can be helpful. But it definitely is something, again, there's many layers, as you said, right? There's the meaningful connection layer. There's the, are you becoming a thought leader layer? There's the, are you even sharing enough content to get into the right quadrant layer? There's
Right.
so many layers to this. So with all of those layers, I want to ask, because you've been running advocacy for a long time, you've been marketing for quite some time. Rolling out
Yes,
an
I am
advocacy
old.
program, right? Rolling out an advocacy program, if there was something that you knew prior to rolling out your first program that you know now that would have made such a major difference, what is that one thing? What would it be?
Mm-hmm. I think well, so 2 years ago we launched a new program. We launched our first advocacy program 2013, which was quite forward thinking. I didn't do it. I can't take credit for it, but that was focused on amplification. Really, ultimately, we used LinkedIn Elevate, gave people content, and they shared it. Great. But then, so 2 years ago, we changed the model to be more about influence and relationships, as I said, and quality over quantity. But I think the thing that we didn't do enough of, or well, I think ultimately, it, we underappreciated how much this is about culture,
Mm,
um, and that really what we were trying to do, and we were focused more on operations, but really what it was more about change management. It's about changing perceptions internally with like senior leadership about social media. That social media, yes, there are some risks attached to it. Encouraging all employees to use social. That's terrifying. The idea of 350,000 people, 350,000 potential risks, right? That's one viewpoint. But
yep.
the other viewpoint is
That
just
is definitely, yeah.
350,000. Yeah, absolutely, and very valid. You know, but it's also 350,000 opportunities, 350,000 voices, and we said that at the time. But I think in terms of kind of again the sort of senior stakeholders and working with marketing leadership, the business leadership. I don't think we did enough of that, of saying this is why we're changing the model, and why we're moving away from just hoping to get more impressions and engagements, and this is the value that it will bring. So I think, and also just yeah, so we didn't do enough of that, I think, but also then the focus was mostly on, okay, what tool are we going to use? What's the onboarding process look like? What are the criteria? Things like that. And actually, sorry, one other thing, really, really key is about educating people on who should be in the program, for our subject matter experts. What is the profile that we're looking for, really? And yes, we want people whose expertise aligns with marketing objectives, basically, so that ultimately they can be useful to the marketer, but also that like I said before, that these have to be people who get it, and are going to log into LinkedIn regularly, are going to respond to the emails, turn up to the calls, all of that kind of logistical stuff. You have to choose those people very carefully, and it's a lot more than just what is their job title. And so that's something that it is a continual struggle, is to have the right people, and because you're investing quite heavily in these people in lots of different ways, and you want to make sure that you're investing in people who are going to give you a good return, and who are going to understand it and appreciate it as well.
Absolutely. I can't highlight or stress that piece enough, right? It's who you're onboarding into your program, who's in your program, because at the end of the day, you're helping them become thought leaders, you're helping them become those influencers, but in return, right, it's also
Hmm.
representing the brand. So you do need to make
Yeah.
sure that you're selecting the right people, tell their right
Yeah.
stories at the right time, right? Which goes back to the most basic of
Hmm.
marketing, right? The right people telling the right stories at the right time, to the right
Yeah.
audience. So with
Yeah.
that being said,
Absolutely.
Joe, I have one last question for you, and that is about your LinkedIn profile. What
Yes.
is one thing that you can tell us about yourself that we actually can't learn about you from LinkedIn itself?
Um, well, one is that I look a lot older than I do in my profile picture, but I think that's probably fairly common. Well, it's like the interesting fact about you question. I used to play in bands. You don't
Oh,
see that in my LinkedIn profile, but I used to be reasonably cool. Not anymore, but yeah, I used to play in bands and
what did you
do
play?
gigs and record albums and stuff.
Bass?
Bass guitar.
Is there
Yeah.
any YouTube evidence?
Yes, there is.
So we will leave it
Yes.
to the listeners to perhaps
Yes.
find that YouTube evidence. And if they want to present you with that evidence or perhaps speak to you about employee advocacy, marketing,
Yeah.
where's the best place one can reach you?
LinkedIn,
Fantastic.
obviously.
Fantastic,
I would
Joe.
say that.
Thank you so much for getting radically transparent with me about employee advocacy, building influencers, and the challenges behind it. I really appreciate our conversation, and I look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you, Jen. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to the Radically Transparent podcast brought to you by Oktopost, the only social media management and employee advocacy platform architected for B2B. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and director of social strategy here at Oktopost. And if you love today's show, we'd love if you subscribe, rate, and give a raving review wherever you get your podcasts. For more discussion on B2B social media marketing, be sure to follow Oktopost on LinkedIn. And of course, to gain access to all our free social media marketing and employee advocacy resources, head on over to our website, www.oktopost.com. Until next time.